Okay, so you want to get smart, fast, maybe have those aha moments without, feeling buried in jargon.
Yeah. Yeah,
You're
exactly.
definitely in the right place. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something called CourtBank.
Right.
Now, it might sound like, well, a bank, but it's actually a really fresh angle on understanding the justice system.
Exactly. It's looking at it through both legal and, importantly, an economic lens. We've been digging into their main document, CourtBank, Legal and Financial Decentralization, plus some related materials.
Right.
And our mission today, really, is to unpack the core ideas of CourtBank. What are they getting at? And what could their approach mean for how you personally see the legal and financial systems around you?
All right, let's dive in. CourtBank introduces this concept they call the monetization of justice.
Yeah.
Now, on the surface, that sounds a bit maybe uncomfortable. Like justice shouldn't have a price tag.
It can sound that way, but what's interesting is how CourtBank connects this to other perspectives, like some we found in the Living Temple seminar notes.
Yep.
These notes suggest that courts sometimes function almost like extensions of commercial frameworks. The idea is that legal processes can have this underlying uh, contractual or financial character.
That's fascinating. And the Living Temple notes, they bring up concepts like the straw man, right? And differences between public and private trusts.
They do. It gets quite complex, but the gist is, well, they suggest there might be a kind of hidden financial structure beneath the visible legal one.
Okay, the straw man. Can you maybe break that down a little? In this context, what are they pointing to?
So think of the straw man as a kind of legal fiction, a separate entity tied to your public persona, your records, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The Living Temple views suggest that when you interact with the public legal system, you might be seen as interacting through this straw man entity, which is distinct from you as a private individual. It's a theory about how legal and financial duties get assigned.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot to chew on. So how does CourtBank take this idea of monetization and make it more sort of practical?
Well, CourtBank gets down to the nuts and bolts. They actually analyze the financial workings of the court system itself.
Like what specifically?
Things like, how are court fees structured? Where does the money from fines actually end up? How do administrative parts of the system generate revenue? They're mapping the real financial flows.
And immediately that makes you think about fairness, right? About access.
Exactly.
Who can afford to navigate this system? It sounds like it echoes concerns from maybe alternative legal thinkers or even creditor rights groups about how the system works financially.
Precisely. It makes you ask, if a system generates income from its own procedures, could that, even unintentionally, create barriers or favor certain outcomes? CourtBank really encourages looking closely at these money trails.
Okay, but CourtBank isn't just looking back or analyzing the current system. They're looking forward, using things like blockchain and, soulbound tokens and SBTs.
Yeah, soulbound tokens,
It
SBTs.
sounds very crypto.
Yeah.
What exactly is an SBT?
Okay, so imagine a digital certificate or badge, but here's the key. It's permanently linked to your digital identity, and you absolutely cannot transfer it to anyone else.
Non-transferable. Got it.
It's basically non-tradable proof. Proof you learned something, proof you participated in something. And it's not just CourtBank playing with this idea, it's part of a much bigger conversation in the crypto economic space. You see similar thinking in places like understanding Bitcoin, or with projects like RSI and Secure Bank Connect, focusing on data ownership and secure identity.
So it's like a verified, unforgeable claim about you that you can't just sell off. How does CourtBank see using these SBTs specifically?
They have a few really interesting applications in mind. One is for decentralized education. An SBT could be undeniable proof you completed a specific legal course or module.
Verifiable learning makes sense.
Another is for governance, maybe in online communities. Your participation or vote could be proven by an SBT, but it wouldn't be tied to, say, how many financial tokens you hold. It's non-transferable participation. And maybe most intriguingly, it allows for building reputation based on actions and learning, verified on the blockchain, but without turning that reputation into just another asset to be bought and sold.
Okay, yeah, I can see the appeal. It's like a digital CV that's tamper-proof and intrinsically linked to you. And that fits neatly with the whole blockchain philosophy, right?
Yeah.
Decentralized, secure, trustworthy.
Exactly.
Which I guess is also why projects like Secure Bank Connect or ERISA are interested in similar tech for their own areas like finance and data.
Absolutely. It taps into blockchain's power for creating secure, verifiable digital identity, which is just becoming more and more crucial.
Okay, so we've got the money angle, we've got the blockchain tech angle. Now, CourtBank also digs into what they call legal financial symbiosis. That sounds dense. What's the core idea there?
It's really about just how deeply intertwined financial systems and legal systems are, often in ways that aren't obvious on the surface. And this resonates with ideas you might find in texts like syntactical trusts, a comprehensive guide. That guide talks about really complex legal structures, sometimes using those same terms like straw man or other syntactical setups that are used to manage huge financial instruments.
Like what kind of instruments?
Like BLI, for instance, bank-owned life insurance.
BOI, right. Definitely not kitchen table talk.
Yeah.
And the guide suggests these operate kind of under the radar, not much public transparency.
That's often the case, yes. They can be very complex vehicles, not always subject to intense public scrutiny. And CourtBank uses this connection to encourage people to ask some really basic but powerful questions.
Such as?
Like within our legal system, who actually holds the ultimate ownership, the legal title, versus who holds the benefit and control the equitable title?
Legal versus equitable title. Okay, can we simplify that, like an everyday example?
Sure. Imagine you legally own a car. The title's in your name. But maybe your sibling paid for most of it and drives it daily. You have the legal title, but your sibling arguably has the equitable title, the real benefit and use.
Ah, okay. I see the split.
So CourtBank prompts us to think, could similar splits between formal ownership and actual control exist within our bigger legal and financial systems?
Right. And how might really big financial interests like massive BOI portfolios or even things like sovereign debt, how might those subtly shape public policy or even how courts behave?
Precisely. It's about becoming aware of the potential financial undercurrents that might influence the legal world we see. And, this isn't exactly new.
You mentioned history plays a role here.
Definitely. CourtBank points to historical precedents. Think about landmark events like the creation of the Federal Reserve Act or significant shifts in how admiralty or maritime law has functioned over centuries. These are major examples where financial considerations and legal frameworks clearly evolved together, influencing each other profoundly. CourtBank wants us to see that ongoing connection.
This is really shifting my perspective. So CourtBank isn't just about understanding these complex links. It seems like it's also about empowering individuals within this whole system, especially navigating the different layers of law.
That's a huge part of it, yes. A key aim is giving people better jurisdictional insight. And this really echoes some themes from those Living Temple documents we mentioned earlier.
Okay.
They talk about differentiating between jura, which they frame as maybe sovereign or private governance, and jur, seen as public or statutory governance.
Okay, jura versus jurb. So CourtBank is trying to help people figure out which system or which set of rules actually applies to them in a given situation. Is that the idea?
That's the core goal, helping users identify their actual standing within these often overlapping systems of authority and control.
Right.
The ultimate goal is really empowerment, enabling individuals to better understand where they stand so they can potentially assert their rights more effectively in what often feels like a maze.
It feels like demystifying the law, making it less of this imposing, inaccessible thing. And their approach to teaching reflects that too, doesn't it? It's collaborative.
Absolutely. CourtBank really emphasizes a community-driven learning model. Materials are reviewed, maybe even co-created, by the users themselves.
Ah, interesting.
It taps right into that decentralized ethos you see in the crypto space. You can almost think of CourtBank as trying to be a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, but focused specifically on legal education.
A DAO for legal education. What would that look like in practice?
Well, the idea is that the learning content itself gets validated by the community. It becomes this kind of open source knowledge base.
Right.
Anyone can potentially access it, maybe contribute. And those soulbound tokens we talked about earlier, they become the decentralized, tamper-proof way to verify who has learned what.
Right, the proof of learning.
And that focus on decentralized validation and transparency really aligns with what projects like SecureBank Connect are trying to do in the financial services space.
It's all starting to click together now, and it seems logical then that CourtBank would be looking at potentially working with some of these other projects in the decentralized ecosystem.
Yes, the potential for integration is really exciting. Imagine CourtBank combining its educational framework with platforms like SecureBank Connect for secure transactions, or RSI for identity verification. They fundamentally share that vision of empowering individuals through more transparent, decentralized tools, whether it's in law or finance.
Can you give us a couple of concrete examples? What might a collaboration actually look like on the ground?
Okay, well, you could have those soulbound learning credentials from CourtBank being issued and managed using Irisize identity tech.
Yeah.
That's one possibility.
Verifiable credentials.
Or maybe SecureBank Connect's infrastructure could be used to tokenize certain legal documents, creating secure digital representations.
Tokenizing legal docs.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You could even see joint educational efforts, perhaps integrating education about syntactical trusts with insights from groups like CCG, or maybe even a shared DAO for governing how these platforms interact.
A joint DAO.
Or perhaps a project to build a kind of historical ledger, mapping key legal financial events using technology potentially from someone like Affinet. Lots of possibilities.
Wow, that paints a picture of a much more interconnected and potentially transparent future ecosystem.
It really does.
Yeah.
So if we boil it all down, CourtBank's core innovation is this reframing, seeing the justice system not just as rules and procedures, but simultaneously as a complex economic system.
Right, with its own financial logic and incentives.
Exactly.
So the key pieces seem to be using blockchain for these unique, non-transferable, soul-bound credentials, digging deep into that historical and ongoing link between law and finance, and building it all on a community-driven, open platform.
You've got it. CourtBank is positioned almost as a kind of living lab. It sits right at that intersection of, say, legal theory, financial transparency, individual control, and this wave of decentralized tech.
Okay. So here's something for you, the listener, to think about as you go about your week. What actually changes if you start viewing the legal system not solely as a framework of rules, but also as a kind of financial ecosystem?
Good question.
How might that shift your perspective on your own rights, your responsibilities, maybe even your access to justice itself? Definitely something to mull over.